Okay. So we are talking about the subject of alternative energy sources. What is alternative energy sources? What is non-conventional? What is renewable? Things like that has been discussed. So which were the points which were discussed in the previous lecture? Energy and its history, the importance of energy, the relation between energy and GDP, the relation between energy, the relation between energy and GDP, and energy and HDI was also discussed. HDI, that is Human Development Index. Then different types of energy sources and how they are classified, etc. Those things were discussed. Then the world energy scenario was discussed, the primary energy scenario and the electrical energy scenario, how it is growing, how it has grown very rapidly over last few decades. That was shown. What it means, is that we in future also we will need to tap lot of different sources of energy. So fossil fuel contribution is not going to go away, but in addition to that you will also have to develop various renewable energy sources like solar and wind and maybe many other biofuel, etc. The like how the things or scenario changed over years was shown. This is world energy primary energy scenario, already discussed. This is electrical power energy scenario of the world, already discussed. Two different representative years were taken, and this is again electrical power scenario, and this also discusses what might happen in future, right? So as you can see, like contribution, more and more contribution from renewable energy sources has to come, and natural gas is also becoming important, while coal is yes, of course, still like maintaining its dominance. Right. This is for electrical power generation, so use of oil is very limited in that. Okay. Now let's discuss the energy scenario for India. Now India has 18% of world's population, but it consumes only 6%. I by mistake I have given somebody some power. Maybe he asked for that, opted for that. That should not be done, right? It might have got recorded who if somebody did it intentionally, right? The meeting is being recorded. So in case it was a mischief, please never repeat it again. Nobody. Yes, so who is this S? Whom I can see? Please immediately go out, leave the meeting, and it's being recorded. Yes, so was this so as of now I'll continue. I hope I don't have any difficulty in that. So India has 6% of world's primary energy, uh, okay, and 18% of the population. So the energy consumption is much lower, even compared or lower as compared to the world average also, and much lower compared to the developed countries. So we need to make the energy available to the classes where it is not available as required, right? Uh, as I have been telling, using means increasing the energy consumption does not mean wasting it. Increasing usage means increasing its use to produce some useful product or useful services, and that will improve the economic condition of the population. So that should be the end result of increase of energy. And it should not be that only a few percentage of people have privilege to use energy or to use some refined form of energy like electrical energy. It should be available, the good quality energy should be available to large masses, as large as possible, and to the last person of the country. That's the objective. Now you can see this graph. What does it show? It shows this the columns here. They show the energy demand. It has been increasing from, it's shown from 1990 to 2013, right? So it has been increasing. This is millions of tons of oil equivalent, and along with that, the GDP is also increasing. The gross domestic product of the country, India, is also increasing. So this shows the relation between energy demand or usage and the GDP. So higher the GDP, more the product and services available, and generally the economy is improving. That is what might be told, right? So even for India, it is seen that the GDP has increased because the energy demand has increased. But you can see that this gap is decreasing. It means that earlier the energy efficiency was less, but now the energy efficiency is higher. So even with somewhat lower demand, or you can say the ratio of GDP to energy demand has increased. So that's a favorable condition or desired condition. Okay. Now energy demand in India, like some future projection is also given. So it is seen that like in future, what is going to grow more, you can see that the natural gas contribution has increased, right? Here it is like billions tons of oil equivalent. So this is primary energy trend, the trend of consumption. That is in future, this is what means a possible scenario. So what you can see as this oil, see overall the height has to increase or the consumption has to increase, right? These numbers are billions tons of oil equivalent. So like in 2020, it's around 1 billion tons of oil equivalent. That's the primary energy that India is using. But in future, it's going to exceed that. Like 2030, it will become nearly somewhere around 1.4 billion tons of oil equivalent. In 2040, even higher. Now coal, you can see here it is slightly less than 0.5, but in 2040 it is somewhere around 0.9. So you are also increasing the use of coal, right? So we are not saying that we will stop using the conventional or non-renewable. They will still have to be used because the energy accessibility is required. So all people in the whole country will need energy for satisfying their requirement, right? Yes. So oil also, the usage has increased by 2040. Bioenergy has not grown much, it seems, right? Not growing much, but natural gas consumption is going to increase. Hydropower contribution remains almost same. Nuclear power contribution will increase a bit, and other renewables, because this bioenergy is also many times included in renewables. So that plus other means the other renewables is solar, as you can read here, wind, solar PV, solar thermal, geothermal, and marine. Okay. Yeah. In case of any genuine difficulty, you can unmute yourself and convey me the message. If possible, I'll try to resolve it. Okay. Now, another graph, annual indigenous production, means within India how much energy or fuel is produced, and what is the contribution from the imported fossil fuels, right? What is the important uh, part of this imported fossil fuels? Oils. Okay. So let's see what does this graph tell. It's one set is for 2000, other set is for 2013. What you see here for crude. Now what does these two numbers, two colors show? This shows imports, right? This violet color shows imports, and dark blue color shows production, and this green color shows exports. Now there is hardly any export here. Now what you find that in 2000 the crude overall consumption is 109 million tons of oil equivalent. Out of that, a small part was produced and remaining was what was imported for crude oil. Okay. Oil products means refinery products. 111 is the number total, and most of that was produced within India. A small portion, you can see, was imported, the refined products. Coal, if you see, most of the coal was produced, still there was some imports. And natural gas contribution was quite small, and most of it was what was produced within India. Now the scenario has changed in 2013. Crude, as you can see, the production has not changed much, right? But imports have increased drastically, right? So whatever fuel which we used for transportation, that is imported in form of crude oil, and that has increased. It's, you can say, almost doubled over this 13 years. Now what does it mean? Import means using the foreign currency, and fiscal means the foreign currency, and trade deficit may increase, if and that's not a favorable thing for the economy. So more production should come, or we should develop our own resources and should use them. Okay, so more production in different forms has to come. So one of them is, of course, using more and more of the energy sources which can be produced within India. Right. So, okay. Now what has happened to the oil products, refinery products? So earlier we were importing a bit of it, but now there is no import of the refined products. We are producing all for our own requirement. But in addition to that, we are also able to export some part of the refined products. That's a favorable thing which has happened. And what about coal? Our usage has increased. Like this is also again more than double. And then the imports also have increased, right? And natural gas usage again doubled, and production within India has increased a bit, but we are also dependent upon the imports, which are normally in the form of LNG, that is liquefied natural gas, right? So this is about the fuels and their usage pattern, how they have changed, and what has been what has means happened which is desirable, and what has happened which is not desirable. Okay. Now electrical power scenario, what you find is this is 1990 scenario, 2013 scenario. It is in terawatt hour, right? It is in terawatt hour. So 1990 it was somewhere around 300, and 2013 it has touched 1200, right? So it has become 4 times. It means that usage of electrical energy has increased many means 3 times over 4 times over these years, right? So that's a favorable thing, and that must be one of the reasons why GDP has increased. And again, we are having even like more and more facilities at our workplace as well as at our home. Like ACs were not at all common in 1990s, but now very common, not just at your home but also in offices, right? So like that is one of the reasons you can see that the consumption of electrical power has grown. Now where is this coming from? Where is this energy coming from? So you can see a large part of is coming from coal, right? The thermal power plants using coal are producing this. But as you know, like coal is responsible for different types of pollutions created, right? Starting from air pollution, different starting from carbon dioxide and NOx, as well as the fly ash, right? So air pollution, and then the soil pollution, right? Because of dumping of the fly ash and leaching of some of the contents of that into the groundwater, so water pollution also, right? So the coal technology needs improvement so that there is less pollution created. Depletion, fear of depletion is again an important part, right? They may last for a few decades or maybe a few centuries, but then it's not going to last for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? So slowly the renewables have to take place of this, but of course they are that scenario is not in foreseeable future. uh, Oil not much used for electrical power production, too costly. Then the gas is also not very much used now, and then the nuclear power growing a bit, and hydro contribution is constant, increasing a bit, and other renewable contribution is also increasing, including the bioenergy, right? But this has to further improve. Other renewables and bio and even hydro and some part also has to come from nuclear for future, right? Beyond 2030, of course 13, of course we are at 2020 now, and this graph needs modification, and certain more like columns need to be added, right, which I'll try to do in future, and if possible provide it to you also. Okay. Now out of the electrical power that we talked about, the what is coming from which fuel? I would like to remind you that I have put the Excel sheet link, the Google form link for attendance. So all of you are requested to fill up that so that the attendance is recorded in a proper way. Yes. So breakup of the India's total installed capacity, which is around 310 gigawatts. So most of it is coming from the thermal power plants, right? And again, most of it again from coal. Then renewables are at 15%. So that's a good growth percentage wise. Hydro is at 14%, and then the natural gas is at 8%, nuclear at 2%. Right? Now, out of this renewables, right, 45.9, which renewable is contributing how much? So wind is contributing large part of it, 61.2%. Solar 18.5, then next the biomass, and then the small hydro, right? Small hydro are considered to be non-conventional, okay, while large size hydro are considered to be conventional sources of energy. And waste to energy, right? The city waste that is generated, you can use it for power production. So this is the energy scenario for India. Now, what was the purpose of discussing the world energy scenario and the energy scenario in India? One more graph is coming up. Like, what are the targets for India for renewable development of renewable energy sources? So this is installed as on 2016. This blue color shows the installed capacity of renewable energy sources in 2016, and the breakup of the targets for 2022. So this color is for 2022. So India intends to increase the small hydro capacity from 4.3 gigawatts as of now, that is 2016, to 10 gigawatts by 2022. Wind currently 28, we want to increase it to 60 gigawatts by 2022. For solar, the plans are ambitious plans, and we want to go up to 100 gigawatts by 2022, and biomass a small increase. Okay, so with this discussion you would be able to understand the need for renewable energy sources better, or alternative energy sources better. So what is the need for renewable energy sources? One of them, the very important one, is economic development of India. We know that we are not a developed country, we are a developing country, and still we have to go very far. And the many people have to come out of, many percentage of people have to come out of poverty, and they have to have a good standard of living. Okay. So for economic development, the energy demand will grow. Where will that energy come from? Because we are worried about the environment and the depletion of fossil fuels, we have to limit the need for the conventional fuels. So a significant part of energy has to come from renewable energy sources like wind, solar, biomass, etc. Then, as I already mentioned, there are environmental concerns, the greenhouse gas emissions, other pollutions coming from the fossil fuels. So we have to find the resources which are less harmful. They may not be completely harmless, but less harmful to the environment. Right? So that's related to the environment concerns. I already talked about fossil fuel depletion, right? They may last for a few decades or few centuries, but not going to last forever. So we have to slowly switch to the renewable energy sources. And another important reason for developing the renewable or alternative energy sources is energy security. Now, what does it mean? In a way, you can say that we are talking about self-reliance, right? Atmanirbhar Bharat. So, the energy that you use, as far as possible or as much as possible, it should come from our own resource. So we should not be too much dependent upon the other countries for our need for energy security, or rather need for energy. Currently, as you know, we are too much dependent upon particularly for oil on other countries. Now, in case there is some problem, right? Some global problem, some war-like situation, or some other interruption is there, then it will be a very difficult condition for India to survive its growth. So it's important that we produce as much as energy within India as possible, right? So solar, wind, and other sources are produced within our country. So they provide better energy security. Okay. So this brings us to the end of the first chapter on the significance of which discuss significance of energy and the energy scenario for the world and energy scenario for India, and finally it established the need for developing the renewable energy sources. Now let us start the discussion on the next chapter, that is renewable energy sources, right? And I hope that the things are going well and all of you are able to hear me. Okay. uh, so let us start that part, and again let me remind you that you have to fill up that Google form for your attendance. I can see 66 responses already, so that's good. So let us continue the discussion on the renewable energy sources. We will start the new chapter on solar energy. Now, many of the things which are discussed in this chapter might be already known to you. So it's a big part of it, maybe half of it, maybe a revision of what you might be already knowing, but still it's required for understanding the solar energy and solar energy devices which convert the solar energy into different other forms of energy, right? Two important such forms: one is electrical, using the solar photovoltaic panels, and the other one, which is not that commonly seen. Of course, one of the example of that, the solar water heater, is already very common, and people have seen them. So one part is solar power, electrical power, and the other is solar thermal energy. Right? When you convert it into heat energy, it's solar thermal collector. Now, to understand how, means what is the availability, how much you can convert, etc., you need to know the basics of solar energy or solar geometry, and the discussion related to solar radiation availability should be there. As we all know, sun is worshipped as god in many of the cultures because that's the ultimate source of energy for the earth. How much is the energy generated in the sun itself? It's very big, right? The power emitted from the sun is around 3.84 into 10 raised to 19 gigawatts. But out of that, 1.75 into 10 raised to 8, this much is intercepted by Earth. That is what is intercepted by Earth, and it might fall on Earth if there is no atmosphere. What is our requirement? The world today, the installed power plant capacity is 2350 gigawatts. So what is intercepted by Earth itself is thousands of times of what is intercepted by Earth. Of course, you cannot use all of the energy that is intercepted by Earth. It's not practicable. But what we want to basically understand is that sun is a very large source of energy, and it's not going to get exhausted like other energy sources. It's going to be there till the life is there, or life is going to be there till the sun is there. So that's the importance of solar energy. Now let's talk about the advantages and limitations of solar energy. So let's take these advantages one by one. First, as already told, sun is inexhaustible source of energy. So it's never going to get depleted. As far as life is there, the energy from the sun is going to be available. Second, solar energy is a clean source of energy, comparatively clean source of energy. That is, when you produce energy, or you can say when you convert it into one form, that is, as you know, it's available as electromagnetic waves. So when you convert it into electrical power or heat energy, during that conversion process, there are no pollutants generated. If you think of, let's say, coal to heat, then there are pollutants generated. Now here, during the conversion process, there are no pollutants generated. Even when you use it, no pollutants are generated. In case of oil, for example, when you use it in your automobiles, the petrol or diesel, it generates pollutants. While when you use solar energy, you are not generating pollution. Of course, you cannot say that it is completely innocent source of energy, because the devices that you use, for example, solar PV panel or solar water heater, it has different components, and those components, when they are manufactured, they in those industries, of course, they produce certain byproducts which might be pollutants. And uh, and they consume energy. So again, that energy may be coming from thermal power plants. So that is also indirect contribution. So there is indirect contribution to pollution, but like during conversion and usage, it doesn't produce any pollution. And one might do what is called life cycle analysis, and it has been established that solar energy, like during its lifetime, starting from the production of the parts of it to the end of life, during its life cycle, it produces less pollutants and greenhouse gases as compared to the conventional energy source equipments. Next thing is, solar energy is available on surface of Earth without any cost. It does not need mining or drilling like fossil fuels, right? It's available on the surface of the Earth. You don't need any mining or drilling. So those efforts, the mining is a very difficult like the condition, and creates different types of pollutions, creates very bad conditions for the people working, etc. So like that's not there in case of solar energy. It's available on the surface of the Earth, and there is no cost of cost of the energy. There is a cost of the device, but there is no cost of the energy. It's freely available from nature, you can say. Solar energy can be produced indigenously, that is within our own country, and we are fortunate in India that we are in the region where the solar energy availability is very high. So it is an important source of energy from point of view of energy security of India. I have already explained what is energy security, right? We are less dependent on the other countries, and that makes us more secure from point of view of energy. Yes. Of course, there are certain limitations, and because of that, the use of solar energy is limited. We have to, or one has to overcome, the researchers or the developers have to overcome these limitations to increase the use or penetration of solar energy. What are the limitations? One of the very important limitation is that it's a dilute source of energy as compared to fossil fuels, right? And of course it has to be a dilute source, otherwise, like in summer, you know, it's already difficult to go out and stand in sun. If it were even more intense, then we can never go out. So it is a dilute source, but we have to accept that yes, it has to be dilute. That is, per meter square area the energy that you get is not very high. What maximum you can expect? You can see here that you can expect summer peak nearly 1000 watt per meter square, or 1 kilowatt per meter square. That is what is falling on the surface of the earth in, means, for a few minutes, or maybe maximum average of an hour or couple of hours. What you get is 1 watt per meter square near the noon time in summer. So it's a dilute source of energy. This 1000 watt per meter square is energy flux, or it's irradiance, what you call, right? Solar irradiance, what is available on the surface of the earth. Of course, it's never uniform. It depends upon the geography of the place, the season, the sky conditions, the daytime, and so many other factors. So because it is dilute, the area of your solar collector has to be large, right? Area of the solar collector has to be large. Now large area means you need, one thing is you need that much area, and second thing is that larger the area of the panel or collector, generally the cost is higher. So that is one important limitation, that the initial cost of the equipment of the solar energy products is many times high. Okay. Again, large area means the area should be available. You can't use any area for solar collectors. You are going to use like a rooftop, which is anyway not used, or your terrace space, or if you are going to put on land, then normally it's the land which is non-fertile, or there are possibilities that you combine agriculture and the solar energy plant. Okay. Or you put it like the way it is done, like putting it on canals. The space above that is anyway not used, or maybe on highways at means overhead it might be put. So you have to find some innovative solutions to the availability of the area. That is one point. Second is that energy from the sun is not continuous and constant, right? Not constant. In morning it's going to be low, continuously increase. If sky conditions are clear, it will be nearly sinusoidal type of variation that you will see. And then again in evening it reduces fast and becomes zero. So it's not constant, varies continuously. Again, it depends upon season, and again when the clouds are there, it won't be available, like generally available in a very low quantity. And later on, as you will see, when the sky is not clear, most of what you get is diffuse radiation and not the direct radiation. So diffuse radiation is less useful, provides less efficiency. Now, because it is not constant, now if you have, let's say, the conventional fossil fuel available, oil or coal, you are able to store it and then use it continuously, most of the times 24/7 except the shutdown periods. So you're able to produce the power continuously or convert energy continuously. In case of solar, if you want to make it available, let's say 24/7, you need storage. Storage can be in the form of batteries like lead acid battery or lithium ion battery, but then the battery costs are not low, but still there are certain applications where you are using it, for example for solar street lighting. But then for large usage, the battery cost and maintenance will be too high. So many times it's good to use solar energy for applications where where the supply from the sun and the requirement of energy coincide, they exist simultaneously. So let's say solar air conditioning. So in summer normally you have clear sky and lot of solar energy available. You use it for air conditioning purpose. If you have that affordable technology, then it is a good application. For pumping in the farms, if you like don't need it's not necessary that you need water at night. During the day you can run it when the sun is available, and you don't need any set of batteries, right? Again, like the rooftop that we see now, they feed into the grid, so there is no need for renewable sorry, no need for batteries even there. Okay, so either the battery technology has to develop to a point where the batteries are not that costly and needs less maintenance, or we have to use solar energy for the applications where you don't need the batteries. Otherwise the cost is becoming high, or you should have some economical ways of storing energy, right? And not all the time it's stored in form of a battery. Sometimes it can be in the form of thermal energy, heat energy. As a temperature difference also it can be stored. For example, the solar water heater itself is a good example of that, right? You have a tank, so tank is nothing but the storage of energy. So you store, like you get it maximum during the, let's say, 3-4 hours during the day, and it can be, it is stored thermal energy overnight also, and even during the in morning, if you want to take a bath, the hot water should be available, right? If enough storage is there, then uh, uh, it is available on demand also. Okay. Yeah. But in general, you can say that because it is not continuous and constant, you have to take care of this challenge, right? Okay. Now this was, in a way, you can say it was a daily variation that we were talking about. But then seasonal variation is also there, and then in some of the seasons, it becomes very undependable, particularly in monsoon. So in that case, you need to have some other standby source, and one of them, like the backup energy source, one of the good option is bioenergy, and you need to have kind of hybrid system which can provide you the energy like continuously, like in different seasons also. So biomass is a good option along with the solar energy. Sometimes it can be combination of solar and wind. Okay. So here we discuss the advantages and the limitations of solar energy. And looking at the advantages, the use is recommended, should be increased, but then you have to try and overcome the limitations for your application. And the solution for may change application wise. One has to find the solution to the problem of that, right? Okay. So next is talking about the sun and the sun rays. So as you already know about the sun, it is a fusion reactor, and hydrogen getting converted to helium. The core temperatures are very, very high, but we are not generally interested in the core temperature when we talk about solar energy. We are interested in the surface temperature. So the black body temperature of the surface of the sun is around 6000 Kelvin. To be precise, around 5800 Kelvin is the surface temperature of the sun, and the radiation, the energy is coming in the form of radiation or electromagnetic waves. Just to know the numbers so that you are able to uh, many of these numbers you don't need to remember. This is just for better digestion or better perspective, getting better perspective about the things. So what is the diameter of the sun? It is around this 1.39 into 10 raised to 6 kilometers. That's the diameter of the sun. And what is the distance between the Earth and the sun? It is around 1.496 into 10 raised to 8. So basically, what we are saying is that the distance is almost 100 times the diameter of the sun. Okay. Then, what is the diameter of the Earth? It's 1.27 into 10 raised to 4. So what we are saying is that the Earth diameter is almost again 1 by 100 of the diameter of the sun, right? So because of course this is not a proportionate diagram, but still tries to convey the idea that the distance between the sun and Earth is much higher than the diameter of the Earth, and again the Earth's diameter is much smaller than the sun's diameter. And because of that, the rays coming from the sun, they are coming at a very small angle, and you can consider it to be a point, source, okay, of energy. Okay. Now, as you know, the Earth is continuously moving around the sun, and the path of the Earth around the sun is not perfectly circular. As you can see here, during a particular day in a year, the Earth is near to the sun. This is perihelion, right? That's January 3. The distance is less. Okay. And during the other time, the aphelion day, July 4, which has just passed, we were at the highest distance from the sun. So in winter, actually the Earth is near to the sun as compared to the summer, right? So that's an important understanding that you need to have. What is the implication of the distance of the Earth from the sun? Actually, the extraterrestrial solar radiation available is higher when the Earth is near to the sun. So in winter, I'm using the word extraterrestrial solar radiation. That means outside Earth's atmosphere. It is higher during the winter, but it is lower during the summer. Of course, the distance variation is not that high. So the variation of that extraterrestrial radiation is also not very high, and it is given by this formula. So n is the day number starting from January 1, right? So as you can see, there is plus or minus 0.033 variation in this one. So that's 3.3% variation over 1. So during that aphelion day, you'll get the maximum radiation, which is this ISC into 1.033, and during that perihelion, it is 1 minus 0.033. Okay, so that's the variation of extraterrestrial solar radiation. That is the radiation that you get outside Earth's atmosphere. That is the definition of extraterrestrial solar radiation. You can that has been explained here. If this is the Earth, this is the atmosphere. If you put 1 meter square area outside Earth's atmosphere, and the amount of radiation that you are perpendicular to the sun ray, amount of radiation that you are able to collect here is called extraterrestrial solar radiation flux. Now over here it is changing, but there is an average which is derived, and that is called solar constant, whose value is now generally accepted as 1367 watt per meter square. Right? I would like to remind you that you have to fill up the attendance sheet, the Google form that is put, you write your details in that. Okay, so 1367 watt per meter square is the solar constant, and that solar constant and the variation of extraterrestrial radiation on a particular day from that constant is because of the things in this bracket, right? So it's going to vary below and above this number during the year. Okay. Yes. So we will talk about the further concepts to this on in the next lecture. Right. So I will conclude the lecture here. So I'll also download the attendance sheet, right? In addition to, of course, the Google form that you have filled up. So I hope I have got that sheet. Okay. Anyway, you have filled up that Google form. I can see 80 responses, so that's fine. Right. So I'll conclude your meeting. I'll conclude this meeting, and I hope that session went well and all of you were able to hear me. And in case there is any difficulty, that may be conveyed in the WhatsApp group. So I stop sharing and stop recording also. And now I end the meeting.